Hi there, and welcome to this short video debrief of Insights Discovery. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we will walk you through your Insights profile to help you really understand it. Have you ever thought it's strange how people around you are different? And of course, we are. So, the first thing we're going to look at is understanding preferences. What is it that helps us to understand ourselves and helps us to understand our similarities and differences from those around us? There are two core Jungian preferences that help us to understand who we are. The first is our level of introversion versus our preference towards extroversion. Where are we on this long continuum? Now, our level of introversion extroversion is also defined by where we find our inspiration or where we gain our energy from. Is it from within if we are more introversion in preference, or is it from outside the outside world if we're more extroversion in our preference? Why is that relevant to us in the workplace? Well, actually, how we think, how we work, the environment we'll thrive in, how we communicate, and the size of the group we want to work with will depending on whether we are more towards introversion or more towards extroversion. If I'm more introversion in preference, I am likely to have strengths which involve independent working. I take time and consideration over things. I go deep into challenges. I make decisions that are considered and well thought through. And I'm cautious with risk. From an extroversion perspective, here we're faster moving. We balance and juggle more things. We're comfortable with risk and we're perhaps more agile in our thinking and our behavior. So, what we might notice is people who are a way away from us along this continuum are more difficult to understand or take a little bit of time to really get to know and work comfortably with. Introversion, extroversion. It's not two boxes, it's a continuum. So we could sit anywhere from an extreme introversion preference to an extreme extroversion preference or anywhere else in between. The second preference is how we make choices or how we make decisions. And again, crudely, there are two ways that people typically make decisions. Firstly, one way is with our head or using our IQ. We're known as thinkers. We use logic, rationality, data, information, case studies, or we use the past to help us predict the future or think of the likeliest outcome or manage the odds. If we're head led, we're likely task orientated and we make lists of things to do and tick them off. And when we get to the end of a typical week and we think back, did we make a difference? It will be what progress did we make on the tasks we had to do? What did we complete? Did we do the things we said we'd do? But actually, slightly more people that you'll come into contact with are more heart driven. Instead of using more an IQ based decision making preference, they make it within a more emotional intelligence. So they use their EQ. They are more relationship focused and they feel their way through decisions. They can use data and logic and information, but actually they have this sixth sense that allows them to read the situation, to read people, to read the room. And they make decisions that are more in favor of the relationship, perhaps over that of the task. So again, from a head and a heart perspective, we will have a difference in how we judge success or how we go about making decisions. And there again can be a little bit of tension, a little bit of conflict between them. If I'm more heart-led, I may look at people who are more head-led and think they're a bit detached or devoid of empathy, perhaps. But if I'm head-led, working with people who are more heart-led, here I'm thinking that maybe they're taking the easy option or the softer option or the popular option rather than what's right for the organization. Let's now have a look then at the very simple Insights Discovery four-color model. What we have here then is four different lead preferences, each with a different color. We have the extroverted side of the wheel on the right with fiery red and sunshine yellow. We have the introverted side of the wheel on the left with cool blue and earth green. We have head-led decision making or thinkers at the top with red and blue, and we have the feelers or those heart-led individuals that make decisions with their heart at the bottom with sunshine yellow and earth green. Now, a couple of things that are really important in this slide. We all have, and when you see your graph, you will see this, we all have some level of preference for all of the four colors. But it's the balance of our preference that makes us unique, that separates us, makes us different, and brings to life our personalities and communication. Even though we have all four, each of the colors has an opposite. So if you lead with, for example, sunshine yellow, you will have extroversion in common with anyone you come into contact with who leads with fiery red. And if you lead with sunshine yellow and you come into contact with people who are earth green, you will have similarity in your decision making preference in terms of the fact that you're heart led. However, if you come into contact with people as a sunshine yellow who lead with cool blue, then there's very little in common about how we think, how we feel, and how we like to work. So we will notice some tension across the wheel. Similarly, you could say the same for those who are red working with green and vice versa. Can they work together? Well, absolutely yes. And actually, often in romantic relationships, opposites attract. But it will take a little bit of time to understand how they work. And we will be surprised sometimes in some of the things they say and do. And we have to be careful not to judge them. So we all have access to all four color preferences, but each color preference does have an opposite. So let's have a look then at the insights color preferences. What does each color mean? What are the strengths and qualities that each of the four colors brings to the party? Well, if you lead with fiery red, you are great at setting stretching goals and objectives. You are brilliant at saying no and ruthlessly prioritizing, knowing only to focus on the things that really matter. You have the most assertive behavior of the four colors, and you are able to keep forward momentum and move through and beyond barriers and problems by going around them in ingenious ways, or if you need to, going right through the middle of the problem. Reds have the highest level of resilience. They rarely give up and they have high levels of energy and they get stuff done and get it over the line. From a yellow perspective, so still on the extroverted side of the wheel, but now leading with heart rather than head. If you lead with yellow, you are fantastic at envisioning. You can sense the future or see the destination more readily and easily than others. You have bigger, bolder, blue sky thoughts and ideas than the other three colors. And you have the most ideas and possibilities. In fact, if yellow isn't your highest color, find someone with high yellow and they will find possibilities and solutions when you have exhausted all of your own. They are positive and warm, and they bring fun and play to the workplace. They are great storytellers and can bring stories to life. They are brilliant at influencing people and helping them to see a different perspective. So yellow is particularly helpful if we're navigating change. From a green perspective, so now we're on the introverted side of the wheel. So green, remember, is introversion and heart-led decision making. Greens are there to keep the community together. They're genuine team players. They give more than they take. They let you win when you're wrong. They're great listeners. They're great supporters. They're great coaches and great mentors. They take on tasks in the team that nobody else wants to. Really thinking of others. They're happy out of the spotlight. They're happy for the team to get plaudits or team members to get plaudits, but they don't need that spotlight. In fact, they have the lowest ego state of all of the four colors. They glue the team together. They have great morals and ethics, and they do everything in a fair and representative way. They are brilliant at finding solutions that are right for everybody. And last but not least, our learned Cool Blue colleagues. If you lead with Cool Blue, a combination of introversion and head-led decision making, you are great with detail. You are great with process. You have a curious mind and ask lots of questions. You want to understand how things work. You want to take things apart to understand them. There is a desire for perfection. We want standards to be super high. We are always looking to continuously improve things, therefore. We're great with processes, we're great with budgets. We have a brilliant track record in terms of decision making because we are both patient and good with data and information. And we make probably the fewest mistakes of the four colors. So hopefully you can see from this slide, whichever color you lead with, you're bringing something really powerful to the team that you're in or the organization that you work for. Now let's have a look at what happens to each color under intense pressure. Okay, under intense pressure, adrenaline flows into the brain and into the prefrontal cortex. That is the key part of our brain that allows us to make logical and rational decisions and keep our cool. Each of the four colors show up in very different ways under pressure. Reds are so focused on the outcome and making things happen that their line of focus is narrowed. And what happens is they sometimes take too much control from people. They disempower. They tell rather than ask. They might be impatient. They may be controlling. They may even be a little bit intolerant or aggressive. Now, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means their primary focus is not relationships or their impact on people. It's getting stuff done and making it happen. From a yellow perspective, and again, quite an interesting one, sunshine yellow. Yellow polarizes. Yellow all of a sudden flips from the good day behavior, which is everything's fantastic, to, oh my God, we're all going to die. Yeah, so they bring drama and chaos to any situation where there's tension. They can point the finger a little bit and blame other people. They can be indiscreet. They can exit difficult conversations too early and not get the best outcome because what they want is to get back to everybody being friends and being happy together. Okay, so we have to be a little bit careful. Interestingly, I wouldn't play poker if I was leading with Sunshine Yellow because even if I say nothing at all, as the most extroverted of the four colors, our body language gives away all of our emotions and feelings. From an earth green perspective, we struggle if we lead with earth green to deal with conflict, and therefore we avoid wherever possible. That might mean if we have to deliver bad news, we put it off. It might mean if we need to make a decision that not everybody is going to support, that we shy away from that decision or make neutral decisions rather than the right decisions. We can also be quite stubborn, the most stubborn of the four colors, because we have to really understand and feel a decision before we're ready to embrace it and move forward. And then from a cool blue perspective, cool blues are looking for certainty and perfection. And in the real world and in the business world, certainty and perfection often don't exist. They are looking for or looking to delay things to enable the perfect decision to be made. So they can sit on the fence too long. They can frustrate others that they are taking too long and being indecisive. And sometimes in a chaotic situation, they can disengage, disconnect, and disappear and try and solve the problem on their own when maybe in certain situations a collaborative approach would be more helpful. So again, all four colors from the previous slide, we can see have fantastic qualities and strengths. But from this slide, we can see that all of us show up and show our true colors in a perhaps unhelpful way as the pressure increases and builds. So let's now have a look at your profile. Okay, so the first thing I'd like us to do is to go to pages 5 and 6 or the overview. This is a copy of my profile, not yours. So you'll find yours on pages 5 or 6 or 6 or 7. I think it's 6 and 7 in my instance here. So what I'd like you to do in a moment is to pause this video, maybe print out these 2 pages. What I'd love you to do is to work through this profile page or these 2 profile pages and maybe underline anything you significantly disagree with. What you will find here are statements that you love, statements that are your strengths. You will see statements here that you're not so keen on. These might be pointing at some weaknesses or some opportunities, things that don't come naturally. And then you may, as I mentioned, spot things that you very much disagree with. Not normally many, but you might find a couple. Underline them. And I'll tell you why we'll do that later. But let's just explain this couple of pages. The first part, it looks at what is your personal style? What will people notice about you in terms of how you communicate, how you show up? This gives us some clues as to the perception of others in terms of how we show up. The second part of the overview looks at our how we work with others. Okay, so what might people notice in terms of how we collaborate, how we reach decisions together, how we work in groups, and then the third part looks at our decision-making preferences, how we make those choices around whether to go with plan A, plan B, or plan C. So once you've read through this and underlined any aspects that you fundamentally disagree with, that were never you, that you feel that you may be the opposite, or that you've never heard as feedback or felt them in yourself, if you underline them beyond this video, take them to someone you know, someone that you trust, and ask them if they see any of these statements in your behavior. Because it may be that what we have are some blind spots. Certainly, when I took my profile to my wife, she laughed when she saw the 3 statements I'd underlined because she could see them in my behavior, even though I couldn't. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to move to the back of the profile, the very back and the very last printed page, and we're going to look at the color dynamics or your color graphs and make some sense of those. Okay, so there's a lot going on in this page, and the first thing we're going to look at is your persona conscious, this left-hand graph. What this left-hand graph shows is your intentional self. It's the you that shows up at work. It's the you when you're trying. It's the you that you want to be. It's the you think will enable you to fit in. It's the you think you will be to get the job done to the best of your ability. It's how you act. It's how you act when you're in control. Okay. Now, this is a random color graph, not yours. Yours will be different. So find yours and have a look at yours. But let's explore this one. What we can see here is they do have all 4 colors, and they have all 4 colors, but at different levels. This individual has a quite high level of sunshine yellow. And the line across the middle at 3 shows us any colors that are above this line are colors that they can adapt to relatively easily and that people will notice in their behavior. And any colors that sit below are likely to be more of a stretch for us or less visible in our actions and behaviors with others. Everybody has at least 1 color above this midline, and nobody has all 4. Most people have 2. This individual on my screen has 3. And we always talk about leading with rather than being, and we talk about our top 2 colors. So this individual, if this was my profile and someone asked me what my insights color preferences were, I'd say I lead with yellow and green. Yeah, my top 2 colors, yellow and green. Our persona conscious. Next, let's have a look at our persona less conscious. This is scored in an indirect way to how you responded to the evaluator. This is our less known side. This is how we might react. This is, in fact, the real us, or this is us when we're not conditioned. This is the us when no one's watching. This is the us when we're super relaxed. This is us with our friends and family, where we feel most comfortable, where we feel we're less likely to be judged. Okay, and what we can see here is there's a difference. There's some difference. All of the colors are a little bit lower, which is fairly typical. Two of the colors now drop below the midline, and the blue is much, much lower. Okay, so this is the relaxed version of ourselves, the less conscious persona. And then finally, let's have a look at the preference flow. The preference flow is really important. The preference flow is showing us how much movement there is between our less conscious, our relaxed natural self, and the left-hand graph, the persona conscious, who we are showing up as, who we're trying to be. And the size of the movement is indicated based on the size of the arrow in the middle. Okay, so what we can see here, there's some small movement in red, some small movement in yellow, some small movement in green. Proportionately, the greatest movement is in the blue. Okay, now it's natural to have small movements like we might see here in red, yellow, and green. But if we see anything that's getting close to perhaps halfway, like the blue, something more significant is happening here. So there's an opportunity perhaps to pause the video here and reflect on what might be happening for you. In this video, for this individual, something's happening where they're having to use or they're valuing blue energy, which they don't naturally have a preference for. It might be that their boss has more blue energy and they're trying to fit in. It might be that they're in a function that needs lots of blue energy, like finance or logistics or legal. Or it might be that they're undertaking some important tasks where detail and process and getting things right is super important. But they will feel that. They will notice there's an element of energy being used, an element of discomfort perhaps, which is something we can do normally over the short term, but over the longer term, that can be a little bit harder for us to manage. So these are our color graphs and our color preferences. Let's have a quick look at the 8 types. So we're going from 4 colors around the outside. We still have red, we still have yellow, we still have green, and we still have blue. But within this, we have a little bit more nuance. We are now have 8 different types or 8 different roles. I find this is similar to Belbin's model of types or roles, and I think it's really useful to help us to understand the greatest strengths that we offer to the team that we work in. Okay, each of the 8 types has different qualities, different strengths that they bring to any group or any team that they are part of. I probably at the beginning of my career spent the first few years trying to be everything to everyone in every meeting all of the time. And it was exhausting for me and probably wasn't the most effective. What this allows us to do is to consciously show up and put pressure on our shoulders in the right places rather than trying to be everything. What hat are you wearing? What role do you play? How do you contribute to this team? Because it may be that you have some gifts for that team that put you and make your role really, really clear. But there are others in the team which are better at different things, and that's absolutely fine and absolutely okay. So we have the 8 types. So let's now have a look then at the insights wheel, the 72 type wheel. Here's an example of what that might look like. There are 72 unique wheel positions, 3 rings of 24. We have 24 wheel positions on the outside, 24 on the middle ring, and 24 on this center ring, on this inside ring. What these rings show is if you have one color above halfway, you will be on this outer ring, which is only about 5%. Most people are in this middle ring. About 55 or so percent of people are in this inner middle ring, and that's known as a classic type. And then about 20 to 25% of people sit on this inner ring, known as the accommodating type. You have 2 wheel positions, and if you can only see one circle or one globe on yours, It will be this type of wheel, a solid globe or a solid ball. This solid globe or solid ball shows your conscious wheel position, your left hand graph, and the faint wheel or the faint ball shows your less conscious, the right hand graph. If you can only see one, they're on top of each other, which means the movement between your conscious and less conscious is relatively small, relatively minor. But here we can see two wheel positions. They're quite similar. They're moving from wheel position 28, a inspiring helper, to wheel position 29, a supporting helper. The grey spokes, if you're on a grey spoke, that means you are a creative type. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're more creative, but what it does mean is that your opposite colours are your top two. And that means that maybe you can move through the four colors a little bit more easily than most. It may also mean that you are able to mediate and see perspectives of people who are struggling to see each other's points of view. The challenges it might come with, though, is there may be a little bit more inattention and it may be more difficult for people to read and understand you. And that's another reason why these profiles are so powerful. It allows us, if we're misunderstood, to help people to understand us. So this is the Insights Discovery 72 type wheel. Very briefly, I'll just guide you to the contents page of the rest of your profile. On pages normally 7 to 9, you'll see your strengths and weaknesses. Strengths that you bring individually, weaknesses or opportunities you might have individually. And then on page 9, we see the value that we bring to the team, what our team members will likely see in us and what they will most likely value. On pages 10 and 11, it looks at communication. How do we communicate? And what are our barriers to communication? How should people communicate with us and what for them to avoid? Pages 12 through 15 are looking at blind spots, things we might not yet be aware of within ourselves. It looks at how to work with our opposite types, and it gives us some suggestions for growth and development. How do we then work out people's color preferences? Maybe we're lucky enough that our colleagues and peers, cross-functional colleagues or externals, maybe they have an insights profile. And if we ask them, if they tell us, then we can understand. But if we don't, maybe, just maybe, we can work out people's color preferences from how they show up. Okay, each color has a mantra. Sunshine yellow is involve me. They like to be involved in things. They want to be connected to things. They want to be involved in the decision making and the conversation. From an earth green perspective, they want to know that you care. You care beyond yourself, beyond the KPIs, whether that's about them, whether that's about the team, whether that's about the organization or the environment. From a blue perspective, it's about detail. They need information and details to be able to make decisions. And from a red perspective, it's be brief, be bright, be gone. They want to connect. They want high energy and positivity, but they want this interaction to be as quick as possible because they will naturally have created lots of other things for themselves to tackle and to balance. So what this slide shows us is to what to look out for. In theory, we could now watch a couple having a conversation and start to work out their color preferences based on their body language, what they're doing with their body and their arms, their communication, how they talk, their volume, their speed, how expressive their communication is, and then their behavior in terms of what are they doing and what is it they're actually talking about. So maybe take a screenshot of this. It's really useful to help us to work out people's color preferences. And by the way, it's impossible really to get this wrong. If you don't feel in rapport or connection with someone, it's likely that your lead color preference is different to theirs. And if you show less of your color preference or show more of any of the others, you're already closer to them than you were before. You're already leaning in and adapting and flexing. Which brings us to a really key slide now. I joke about this being the most important slide you will ever see in your lives. And this is a slide that is going to help you to understand every single person that you will ever meet moving forward. Okay, shall we have a look? What this shows us is crudely how each of the four colors is built. What's happening under the bonnet? What's happening in their heads? What's important to them? And how are they likely to show up? So this means that what we're able to do is if we understand this, we can tweak our conversations, tweak our communication to be able to fall into rapport and have deep, meaningful relationships with anybody that we might need to work with. What we can see from this then is how will they show up or how will they appear? Yeah, what will we notice about them first, perhaps? But also, it starts to show us what is important to them. What does success look like for them? What will they be measuring success by? And it's different across all four. We can look at how they want to be seen by others, how they want to be and how they want to be seen. If we move down, how they want you to be, how they want interactions for you to turn out, what their fears might be, what they're afraid of, what's going to irritate them or get up their nose, and how they might act under pressure. And finally, how they make choices, how they make decisions. And if you work down maybe your column, your lead column, your preference column, maybe there are aspects of that that really make sense to you and they're kind of obvious to you. But if you go to another color, or certainly your opposite color, you will see the way they work is very alien. It's like a different language. So really starting to come to terms with that and understand that can be extremely powerful because if you want to align with people, collaborate with people, or get people to make a decision, then understanding what's important to them is super powerful. So I would again take a screenshot of this and perhaps print it off. So we've kind of covered really the core elements of taking you through your profile. So what do we do now? So what I've tried to do here is give you a number of simple actions or tasks you could take now that will put some of what we've learned today into action and into practice. Some things that will help people to understand you, some things that will help you test yourself, some things that will help you be less reliant perhaps on your lead color preference, or indeed to allow you to play to your strengths. So again, feel free to pause the video here, have a look through those, and maybe pick one, two, or three of those that you might try over the next couple of weeks to put into practice to really sort of embed the learning that we've had today. Beyond today, so today what we've done is we've taken you through the insights discovery profile. That is the pinnacle. That is the tip of the iceberg. That is step one in terms of self-awareness, leadership, and business effectiveness. There are quickly other ways that we can go, other things we can do. There's a management chapter, if you haven't had that already, 4 extra pages that look at how we lead, how we like to be led, and how we're motivated. If you work in a commercial role or you're customer facing, or certainly if you work in a sales team, there is a 9-page additional profile that looks at how we sell and influence. It looks at your sales persona. It looks at the different steps to selling and the 24 skills and behaviors that are essential to selling and influencing. There's also, if you're in a leadership role, there is a leadership model, the transformational leadership model that sits on the outside. And it looks not only at how we are wired and how we communicate, but it looks at how we lead ourselves, how we lead our teams, and how we lead organizations. We also have a high performing teams model or a team effectiveness model, which looks at the 8 components of a successful team. And then within that, the 32 subcomponents that all teams have to be aware of to enable them to be balanced and successful and sustainable. There's a brilliant module on thriving through change. Each of the four colors has different qualities they bring through change, but also different challenges they face navigating change. So we look at to that, we look into that. There's also a model on resilience, and resilience is something that we can build like a muscle, and it helps us to understand the components that make us resilient and how we can navigate those and become even more resilient. And then finally, there's a 360 tool, a tool where we ask others to give us feedback in a similar way to the evaluator questions that we use to complete this profile. And what it allows us to think about is, are we showing up to others in a way that we feel we are? Is our self awareness being seen by others, or do other people view us in different ways? There's a different version of us show up. So it's a great way of getting some qualitative and quantitative feedback across a team to deepen trust, deepen understanding, and to ensure that a team works well together moving forward. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I'm James Powis. Here's my contact details, my email and my mobile. If you have any other requirements on Insights Discovery, please let me know. Or if you have any questions based on this video debrief, please do get in touch and ask away. Thank you very much. Goodbye.